Hello good people of YouTube and welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm going to take a look at the models that I've picked up from Claymore Castings. Now I've no affiliation or connection with Claymore Castings, and this is the first order, the first purchase that I've ever made from them, and I have to say I'm very impressed. We're going to look at the stuff that I've bought, obviously, and do a few scale comparisons. So I've taken over the dining room table again. I've got lots of stuff laid out. It looks like an absolute mess, but I've even got some old Citadel miniatures as well to look at, plus the plastic Bretonnians that I've been working on, or at least some of them, and a few offerings from Wargames Foundry as well. So I guess the first thing to do is to look at these. I'm not sure what these were, whether they were mounted men-at-arms or knights. I didn't really concentrate when I purchased these. I was just taken by the horses. I like the poses. Now they all come with codes. I can't remember the letters at the beginning, but this is pack number 23. And in it you get 2 men-at-arms. This chap's arm has been cast separately, and somewhat confusingly it's on the leg of the other guy, but that could just be how it came out of the mould. It looks as well like the tip of his sword is broken, and my guess is that's unintentional, but I quite like it. It's a happy little accident that I can run with there. There's a couple of shields as well, again white metal, but the reason that I was drawn to this particular pack was because of the horses, which are in this cloth barding. Again, I don't know what the proper name for that is, but these are lovely poses, and that's why I was drawn to them. I don't think that one stands up very well, so we'll be going with the other one. There's a little bit of metal on the bottom I've yet to clean up, but that's a nice pose, almost sort of rearing up, and this one charging. So that was what drew me to this pack of mounted men-at-arms / medieval knights. So with these horses, very quickly, the first comparison that I want to make is an obvious one. It's with the Victrix plastic medieval knights horse there. I have featured those in a previous video, and these are some of my favourite horse poses, but that's a Claymore Castings Metal horse, and a Victrix Medieval Knights plastic horse there for scale reference. Now I have got a Perry, I think this might be an Agincourt knight. This one, I did it as a bowman, so we'll just shuffle these around again for scale comparison. That is the Claymore Castings metal horse up against a Perry horse. It looks a little bit smaller, I think it is, but actually in terms of width and everything, yeah, it's a tiny bit smaller. But if you were to mount that on a slightly raised bit of texture on the base, you probably wouldn't notice so much. That's just to give you some idea. You can see there's quite a difference there, but I think perhaps as long as they weren't on the same base, it may not be a problem. So anyway, that's a scale comparison there with the Perrys, which I know are a little bit larger. Right, another Victrix horse that I've got based up. They're all blue tacked, but you can see again, I'll probably pull one of those off the base just to give you an idea of what they look like Again, the Victrix one is slightly taller. I'll bring the Perry one back in just for size comparison as well. Perry slightly taller than the Victrix. Horses look to be about the same sort of width, with the Claymore one coming in a little bit on the shorter and narrower side, but I'm not sure that that would bother me if I'm able to do some variation with the ground texture on the base, that I might be able to get away with it that way. So that's that. I've also got some FireForge minis. I want to try and get this one off. Again, I've only blue tacked these down, but they've been sat there for a while on a shelf. So blue tack's lifted that one up slightly. But again, just for size comparison, the plastics are coming slightly bigger than these metals from Claymore, but the poses are nice, and also the horse heads are a good size. So that is one thing that I found with a lot of miniatures, and also my experience with miniature sculpting, is that you can have miniatures that are the same scale, supposed to be the same scale, but if the head is slightly larger on one model than the other, then the one with the larger head or the larger hands will appear to be a larger scale. So I think the fact that these horse heads are pretty close in size means that you could probably get away, like I said, with just a bit of basing to make the Claymore riders a bit taller. But there's no doubt the Perry Agincourt Knights do come in slightly taller than the FireForge or the Claymore. So I did just want to show you those and get the horses, basically get the horses out of the way. I do love these figures. Before I put everything else away, I will look at the next pack. So this is a bit rushed, this video, because I need to get the table cleared, but basically everything else that I've purchased, and I do want to do these justice in the next sort of 10 minutes or so, everything else I've purchased is to make a unit of mounted archers, which are obviously dismounted, so they've ridden into battle. And that's what this pack here is. It's a couple of horse holders, and you can get the horses, a pack of horses separately as well. Now this one, I've just pushed the back leg in there. The back leg was a separate bit of metal on this horse, so that's why there's a gap there. And that was obviously a production issue to prevent the pinch point between the back legs, perhaps shortening the life of the mold. So I completely understand that as someone who's dealt with those issues before. And there's the other horse there. Lovely sculpts, really nice. And as I said, these aren't ridden, these ones. These are being held. I don't even know if this guy will stand up, but you can kind of get the idea from that. So there's two Claymore, the mounted knights, and the horse holder for the kind of mounted archers unit, which I will be putting together and painting dismounted and in action. So that's these guys I'll look at in a minute, but I'm just doing a quick again a quick scale comparison. There's the horse against a Victrix horse, also against, you see, these tend to measure up better than the other knights. I think these are a better fit. These work really well. So that is FireForge, their Dust Vult range, although I do think the shield arm and the weapon arm on that one is out of the Victrix pack. I was doing some kit batching. So that's Victrix, FireForge and Claymore with the horse holder there. I'll bring the Perry one back in, just again to see how that sort of... Now there is a little bit of blue tack under the Perry one, but even so, that's still quite noticeably bigger. I don't think it's a showstopper myself. The horses seem to be a good, you know, good size. And as I said, it's the heads as well that are quite important. The horse heads look a good comparable size, so you could get away with a little bit of base modelling to compensate for anything that doesn't perhaps fit so well. But there we have the Claymore Castings horses that I've purchased, with a scale comparison of those with some of the historicals, the FireForge, the Perrys and the Victrix. Now, yeah, let's just grab a Victrix Knight. Try and get the blue tack off the base so we can do a comparison there. And that's a built Victrix Medieval Knight. Again, just blue tacked on, because not even that probably, but I'll be painting these. So I think, all in all, I think these, the dismounted archers and the horse holders, they're a pretty good scale comparison with some of what else is out there on the market. And just for completeness, I want to bring in a Wargames Atlantic Horse. Now this is the horse as opposed to the light horse. And again, I think that's a good size. So if you're looking at kit bashing or making horses without the riders, they're quite a good size. And there we've got one that's, I glued the saddle cloth on that particular one there. So they're quite a good size. And also there's the Wargames Atlantic Light Horse, which is a slightly different model. It's slightly smaller than the horse that they do. And also the reins and the bottom jaw glue on separately. On the regular horse there, it's a one piece. The head is a one piece sort of plastic moulding, and you glue the head and the neck on. But with the light horses, you've got a little bit of extra work to do, and they are slightly, as you'd expect a light horse to be, slightly smaller in stature. Right, so that's the Claymore Castings horses, sort of scaled up with some of the other stuff that I know people will be looking at using or may already have in their collection. And lastly, for those who love a bit of fantasy, there's a Claymore casting against a Bretonnian, the old whatever edition it was, 5th, 4th edition Bretonnian horse. Games Workshop stuff's always been a bit bigger, chunkier. I'll bring in an up-to-date Bretonnian horse in a minute. I have been looking at the potential of using these old Games Workshop horses with historical models, but like I said, they are quite bold and chunky. That's got a Victrix mounted medieval knight on the back of it. It works, probably work for a Bretonnian army. I'm not so sure it would work for historical, but then I do both, so I'm happy to chop and change when it suits. So yeah, and the last scale comparison for the Claymore casting is just to put the horse up against a very substantial Games Workshop Knights of the Realm warhorse. And really that is where, you know, the Games Workshop fantasy kind of size difference really does kind of show. The figure actually might work as a horse holder in a Bretonnian army, if that's what you're thinking. But just a quick look at this model. This is actually a conversion that I started sort of 20 odd years ago for vampire counts, put it on a Bretonnian warhorse instead, and then it ended up in a bits box for, like I said, the best part of 20 years. And so I found it again, and I'm trying to restore it to what I originally had in mind. But that is a Bretonnian warhorse with a vampire count sort of lord on top. And I did do a little dragon claw on the end of the lance, but that will be featured in future videos. I just had it to hand for the sort of size comparison with Claymore Castings, and again I can do the same with the Pegasus, just in case anyone is thinking. It's not ideal because it's on a flying stem and it's yet to be painted, but you can see there is quite a substantial difference when we get to that kind of thing. I don't have any old Citadel miniatures, horses or anything, but I do have stuff that's close. I'm not sure what this is. I don't know whether this is, I think there was a Rafum, R-A-F-M, Rafum. It could be one of those. It's probably fantasy rather than historical, but it's a good size to represent the old sort of pre-slaughter stuff that was around in the 80s and 90s. And again, I just thought I'd chuck that into the mix to show there is, 25mm versus 28mm perhaps, and a little bit of scale creep over the intervening years. But that hopefully gives you a good sort of rounded idea of how the Claymore Castings horses fit in against some of the current sort of offerings from elsewhere. Like I said, we've had the horses and light horses from Wargames Atlantic. We've had the medieval Sergeant at Arms and feudal knights horses from FireForge, the medieval knights from Victrix, and some Perrys. So that's the Claymore Castings horses. Now I just want to look at some of the archers that I've purchased. I bought 3 packs in addition to the horse holders. So that was part of the medieval archers, the horse holders. And I mean, that's a nice chap there. Just show you that one. He's actually climbing onto the saddle. And I believe the difference between these archers, these mounted or dismounted archers, and the other archers is they've got stirrups and basically the riding shoes, which the other archers in the other range don't have. So quickly, I'll do a quick look at the models and then some scale comparisons. So this is pack number 30. I can't remember what the horse holders were, but if you go onto the Claymore Castings website, claymorecastings.co.uk, you can browse by type or by kind of period. So this is pack 59. So these were medieval horse holders. So that was pack 59. And then we've got the dismounted horse archers. So this pack 30. Yeah, pack 30 for this one. 4 archers. I think they're about £8.50 a pack. So I mean, they're not cheap, but they are lovely models. I mean, the sculpts are lovely. The poses are great. They look fantastic. And I won't do scale comparison with each and every one. I will show you. I haven't cleaned these up either, so there's little bits of not flash so much, they've cast up quite well, but all these little vents and things that just need snipping off. I'm not going to do that hurriedly because of course there are delicate parts on these models. So there's another archer there, sort of drawing a fresh arrow, very beautifully sculpted these. But they do seem to have a little bit of problems with perhaps the sharp ends of a few bits and pieces, because again, that looks a bit blunt. That might just be my eye, but to me, that looks like it's broken off in the mold when they've pulled the casting out. I don't know. But anyway, it's not a showstopper, as I said, with the broken sword that I saw. Right, next pack here. and I'll just quickly go through the poses. This is pack 33, again, dismounted horse archers. I just want to show the poses. Right, this guy's obviously getting his bow out by the look of it from the carrying case, the sheath, and then there's the sword in front. So that's that one. That's rather a nice pose. Sorry, I do get drawn in. This is a lovely pose as well, sort of firing. Very wide gate on these, a lot wider than you find on the Perry models, but similar to the sort of FireForge. And that's another kind of classic pose there. And that guy there getting ready to aim and fire. So just, yeah, that was pack 33 with those 4 in. And I will pick a couple just to do scale comparisons. And this final one, this is pack 38. Again, of the dismounted horse archers, medieval archers. So yeah, nice dynamic pose. Now, I was first kind of made aware, that's another one very similar, but I was first made aware of Claymore Castings Medieval ranges by watching Medieval Wargamer YouTube channel. He's got lots of stuff on there. Again, this looks like it needs straightening a little. That's the problem when obviously when the miniatures are warm and they come out the mold, the metal is very flexible. I will have to do that gently off camera, but it's just something to be aware of. You get this with a lot of metal miniatures, but that does seem worse than some examples I've seen elsewhere. And then this one, again, another lovely classic pose. But yes, I'd seen a lot of these miniatures featured on the Medieval Wargamers YouTube channel, and that's what sort of caught my eye. They do some brilliant poses, and they are, in fairness to Claymore, and yeah, I've highlighted a few kind of bits, but I think with a lot of these poses, they really are pushing the kind of metal casting technology to its limits, which is a good thing. I used to do that a lot as well when I had my fantasy miniatures business. So yeah, it's great to see. So those are the dismounted archers and the horse holders, and of course the men-at-arms that I purchased in my first order from Claymore. I will definitely be buying some more models off them. I don't know if I'll use them in my Bretonnian army. I've been doing a lot of kit bashing with the fantasy and introducing ogre models and stuff like that. And just to give you an idea, like for example, this FireForge plastic miniature with from their Does Vult medieval range, a medieval archer body, or a sergeant at arms. So that's a FireForge body, which I've cut off the base and tipped forward as though he's falling. FireForge arms, again, but from their Northern Realms range. And then obviously cut off at the wrist to give it a Games Workshop Bretonnian halberd, and a bit of trimming around the neck to angle the head so it looks like he's screaming as he falls. And that's a Games Workshop Bretonnian head there that's stuck on that. So the kit bashing that I've been doing lately has been very much inspired by some of the poses that I've seen with the Claymore castings. So although this video is intended for, you know, people who are building medieval armies, I also play fantasy, so where there's overlap, I will be including all that. I'll show you another 2 of these Bretonnians. Again, same thing here. FireForge, Does Vult medieval body. Again, arms picked from the bits I had left over from the Northern Realms, or And I think on this one I actually used the sleeves. The sleeves are from a FireForge arm, and then the oh yes, that's it, and then the from the elbows down, that's a Bretonnian arm and a Bretonnian shield. It's on some of the others where I was swapping them for like the folk rabble and stuff like that from their fantasy ranges. But you can see I've done the Bretonnian rabbit and dagger and stuck some of the accoutrements on as well, and that's the same sort of Bretonnian head. He features in a different unit in a slightly different place, so I can afford to reuse the heads. I've got some more there, but the other one I wanted to show you was this guy. I'll probably do an arrow in his chest, but you can see he's dropping his weapon, so I just glued it to his leg. So it's on the way down to the ground, but it still sticks forward, so it looks good in a unit. But I'm thinking of putting an arrow in his chest just beneath that hand there. And again, this is a FireForge medieval archer's body. Arms from the FireForge Forgotten Worlds or whatever it is. And the hands, that's a FireForge medieval hand on that one, but that's a folk rabble arm from FireForge there. Bretonnian head, again, the same crying, screaming one, because it's mixed in with others. And obviously the Bretonnian halberd, where I've trimmed the hand off and then just kind of glazed it with some plastic glue to just soften the edges on the cut marks. So I will be featuring more of this kind of kit bashing stuff in another video for my Bretonnian army, but I just mention those now because it's that some of the sort of dynamic poses that I've seen on the Claymore Castings website were inspiration for these. Now, just to round off very quickly, I want to do a scale sort of comparison. But the first thing, if any of you old timers are out there like me and you remember the first time Bretonnians made an appearance, then you'll remember these guys. Now, I've put this one on. This is a Perry sculpt of one of the first sort of plastics that were done, the Bretonnian plastics, and that's a Perry sculpt, that one. There were two variations. I've got a few examples of each, but they are some of my favourite sculpts, these, and I think the intention was, yes, they're Bretonnians, but they could be used in medieval historical. But of course, if you compare, and this is going to be difficult to show because size-wise, they're pretty good in terms of their height. The old Bretonnian plastic looks a bit squat, but the metals tend to be thinner anyway, and the plastic one is quite chunky. So it's kind of a bit hit and miss there with those. These Bretonnians are actually quite big, the plastic ones, compared to the Claymore medieval archers. So I'm just wondering if I've got another one that I can bring up there, just to kind of, because I want to compare them to some Perrys. So these are Perry, I think these are War of the Roses, actually, these guys. I'm just scanning, yes, here we are. And on this side, that's Agincourt. So I don't know if you can see well enough there, size-wise. They're pretty close, height-wise. Might be a bit chunkier because they're wearing, you know, sort of thicker clothing. Perhaps let's just try and find another figure to put in there. That one was very kind of reminiscent of Perry's when I saw it. Let's see. So that gives you a good idea of what they look like against the Perry miniatures. The Perry plastics, I should add, not the old Perry Bretonnian. But yeah, Agincourt on this side, War of the Roses on that side. So it does seem to be quite a nice fit. I'll probably end up sprinkling these guys around if I get any more. Obviously, what I've got now is a dismounted kind of horse unit, so I will be careful how I use those or choose to use those. But yeah, I do like those. Right, we'll move the Agincourt ones out, Perry Agincourt, out of the way, and we'll just bring in some FireForge again, just to show the kind of scale comparison. FireForge might be a little chunkier, perhaps, tiny bit, but not too bad. Get rid of those Perrys there and bring in this other FireForge. That's a Foot Knight, one of the new sort of Foot Knights, medieval Foot Knights from FireForge. So sizes are quite good. I hope you can still hear me the way I'm holding the camera at the moment. And if we bring in some fantasy offerings, that's human infantry from Oathmark. I've been using a lot of those in my medieval conversions. And then we've got some light infantry, which I thought might make some good sort of Irish kerns or something. Again, lighting's not brilliant, but scale-wise, that's a nice fit with a Claymore. I did one as well with a spear and a shield, a bit like a standard bearer. So, although that's a fantasy model, scale-wise, it's quite a nice fit, as I said. So that's the Perrys and the FireForge stuff. What we will do, actually, I'll just bring this. I know he's on a bigger base, but that's one of the northern, folk rabble, northern forgotten worlds. I don't know, Northern Realms folk rabble. I haven't got the box handy, so. But you can see from that how Claymore castings kind of size up to those. Almost done. Last thing I want to touch on is, I don't know who manufactured these metals here, but I bought a whole load of them already painted, and you can't really see these under this light brilliantly, but I'm starting to rebase them. And when I bought these, there was about 80 of them, loads, and it's just basically the same pose over and over again, but with different garments. And they were painted up, and the chap who was selling it was at a show, second-hand trader at a show, who basically said it was from Wargames Illustrated magazine. Now, I've got dozens of these, as I said, and I started rebasing them, and then I thought, no, I'm going to mix them in amongst other models. But I was told that these featured in Wargames Illustrated. I did send an email to them asking if they could just confirm that, and the email was ignored. But I did subsequently see a photograph of the unit that I'd bought on the bases that I bought them on, in the Nevermind the Billhooks Deluxe publications. So I suspect that the description that I got from the trader that I bought them from was in fact accurate, and these are, or were once, featured in Wargames Illustrated. If anyone out there has actually got a copy of the Wargames Illustrated and the photographs of the unit, I would be interested to see it. But I've included these again just as a scale reference. Don't know who the manufacturer is on those metals, but the size is really good when compared to the Claymore Castings models that I've purchased. So I did want to throw that in. And then just finally, there's a very well-known Games Workshop Fleeing Empire chappie. Scale-wise, the figures actually seem okay. Obviously, it's on a bigger base, but if you compare it to an earlier Archer, which is quite fat and chunky, the Plastic Empire that Games Workshop used to do probably you could probably get away with using some of these miniatures, these Claymore miniatures in an Empire army if you wanted to. I'll certainly be looking at using them in my Bretonnian army. I'm just trying to find a Bretonnian that is kind of unadulterated. And I just want to do a scale. There's a Bretonnian men-at-arms. Again, just for as a scale reference. I hope you find this useful. I think from the feedback that I get, a lot of you do, and it's certainly something that I spend time doing before I commit to any model making, is to line these guys up. Now, so that's all the current stuff. Games Workshop, as I said, I've got it all lined up here. It's an absolute mess, but so there's some Games Workshop stuff there. There's the Perrys that we've looked at. There's the unknown soldiers from a unit that featured in a Wargames Illustrated article, and or never mind the bill hooks. There's some Oathmark, fantasy humans, human infantry and light infantry. There's of course the Games Workshop Fleeing Empire chap. There's the FireForge medieval ranges and their fantasy folk rabble there. Plus the horses from Wargames Atlantic and Victrix and FireForge. So I've tried to kind of show you everything. And just as a little treat, towards the end here, I just wanted to do a comparison to some old Citadel retainers. Now, okay, they're not archers and they're not based. I've literally just found these, dug these out of an old box, but I think these are probably old. If they're not Perry sculpts, they were certainly inspired by, what's that, 1985. So these are from 1985. Against the Claymore of the present day. Let's just get those. So possibly, if you've got a collection, the reason I'm doing this is if you've got a collection of old miniatures. Citadel did a range of miniatures like, I don't know, fighting fantasy type, but you had fighters, retainers, all sorts, and they were all sort of at that point where pre-slaughter was turning into the slaughter-based stuff. I mean, there's a peasant there, and this is actually leading somewhere. I'm not just frothing for the sake of it. But of course, they were all on the plastic slot bases. And then when Brian Ansell and co went their separate ways, I know that Foundry took a lot of the old historical sort of Citadel ranges with them. Now, what I have here, again, just as a sort of a size comparison, I am thinking of running these guys here actually in my Bretonnian army as a bombard crew. And these guys, what we got? We've got Godfrey, Wart, and Hugh. There, and the reason I'm pulling these out, apart from, you know, obviously being able to do a scale comparison to the Claymore castings, you probably never put these together, but, you know, separated side by side in different units, I think they would work quite nicely. So although I'd be tempted to use this, I do still have an old sort of cannon there. I've got another one. I'm short on some wheels, but I can sculpt some to compensate for that. And I do have some duplicate versions as well, and possibly a different captain or whatever. So I've got some possibilities here with this. But the reason that I'm showing this is because I was going to bust open a blister. This is Foundry. This is Hobbs for £3 from Foundry. And I don't know if I can, without opening the blister, kind of indicate, you know, you can see he's a little bit shorter, a little bit more squat, but on a different base in a different unit, you might actually look okay. But anyway, as well as hobs, I have these guys, and this illustrates what I'm on about. So I know the Perrys did a lot of sort of medieval type sculpts, historical sculpts for Games Workshop and Citadel miniatures. Now, they're a bit kind of on top of each other, and I do have a problem with the lights, but what I want to try and show you is the fact that they are the same miniature. So Godfrey, there, getting ready to reposition a cannon or whatever with his trusty piece of wood, is actually Godfrey there, but on the puddle base and no name. So again, who's this one? Wart, scratching his head with a mallet. And there he is again on the puddle base. So that's why, and this one you can't actually see Hugh. You can see his leg there tucked away. So this is Feudal Artillery Crew, £8 from Wargames Foundry. And I don't need to open it because I've got these old Citadel miniatures. So of course these original Citadels, they now belong to, you know, Foundry in their new guise on puddle bases rather than not yet 1985. So there we are. And just before I finish, I did find this guy as well, which is an old Citadel miniature. A little bit worse for wear, slightly worn, but potentially could make quite a nice king, perhaps for a medieval historical game. If not, I might use him with my Bretonnians as maybe a dismounted baron or whatever, don't know. But anyway, that's another piece of history. And finally, this guy I found, this is a Harlequin miniature, probably from the early 90s maybe. And of course you can see it's broken. It was a standard bearer, very reminiscent, very much like the Bretonnian metals, and I may well use him for that. But again, just as a scale reference, if any of you do have some old Harlequin medieval miniatures at home, then, you know, they fit quite nicely with the Claymore castings. So there we are. I think that just about covers everything that I wanted to touch on today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. As I said, it was really just a scale comparison between, I know a lot of people have asked me about the Claymore miniatures and could I do a scale comparison. So that was it. So as I said, apart from a couple of these mounted men-at-arms, and I love those horses, I went for some dismounted archers, along with a pack of horse holders and 2 horses. So yeah, that's it. Thanks very much for sticking with me. Once again, if you like what I do, if you find this kind of thing useful, please smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. Please check out my other videos as well. I do a really deep dive on some of the Bretonnian kit bashing and converting that I've been doing, which again, I hope you find useful. I always do scale comparisons and feature other manufacturers wherever possible. I also look at what you can do by picking and mixing different parts. And when I find some nice models that are one-piece metal castings, like these Claymore castings, then I'm happy to do a look at those as well. So as I said, thanks very much for sticking with me. I hope you enjoyed the video. please like, please subscribe, please tell your friends, and stay safe. I'll see you in the next one.